Philip, let me ask you this. The healthcare sector has been performing quite well relative to other sectors. What's the underlying reason for this?
Sure. So I think really what it is there's been a couple of factors that have been holding back the sector in prior periods that the market has now found comfort with, that those factors are starting to ease or go away. So in particular, really what I'm talking about here is the political headwinds from the concerns that when you're in the prior kind of period, 2016, the lead up to the US elections, where healthcare was such a topical policy for both the Clinton sort of campaign as well as Donald Trump's campaign. And then as we moved into 2017, after Trump had won, as I'm sure you recall, he tried to change the legislation a few times and generally struggled to do that. But the concern that the market had that healthcare was right in the spotlight from a political perspective and that there could be regulatory change, I think dampened the sentiment towards the sector. What we've seen really over the last year, maybe even 18 months now, is that political focus on healthcare has started to fade away. And with that, I think what we're seeing is the performance of the companies themselves, the strong returns, revenues, cash flows that those businesses are generating. That's what's starting to now drive the outperformance of the companies.
Okay. Apart from that, do issues like rising interest rates, trade war, and now rising oil prices have any impact on the performance of the healthcare sector?
Yeah, they only do in an indirect way. So healthcare, one of the great advantages of the sector is it tends to be driven not so much by cyclical economic forces, so not so much by trade impacts or by rising or falling oil prices, but by longer term structural drivers. And so, for example, one of the most important structural drivers on a 10-year or even a 20-year horizon is the aging populations around the world. And so whether that's aging populations in the US or in Europe, or obviously particularly Japan, or even in emerging markets like China, as populations age more, we naturally spend more on healthcare. The other reason that it's not so cyclical is healthcare is a necessary area of spending. What I mean by that is when we get sick or when our loved ones become ill, we will prioritize spending on their healthcare needs. And if the economy softens, if we go through a weaker patch or a recession, well, you might not take a nice holiday or you might not change your car. But if your family is sick, you will spend on healthcare. And so it doesn't have the same cyclical impacts as many other parts of the economy.
So from the investor's perspective, it's always a safe bet to have some exposure to the healthcare sector.
Yeah, well, certainly our view is that it is. And again, I think there are a few different reasons for that. So one is, it is one of the sectors where you can see over a very long horizon that there are important forces that are supporting the returns of these companies. So again, the aging population. But equally, we think of it as well as almost a way of managing some of the costs associated with might be your own or your family's own healthcare spending needs. If you can invest in a healthcare portfolio and save that way, then you'll have savings in place if you do have a need to spend on your own healthcare or your family's healthcare. So we think it can act as, in a sense, a kind of hedge against our own personal healthcare spending needs.
We have heard a lot of technology disruptions, but not much in the healthcare sector. Maybe it has not been publicized that much, but in fact, a lot of achievements
very
have been
important
going
ones,
on.
yeah.
A lot of progress have been going on. Can you tell us, some of the innovations, going on in the healthcare sector?
Yeah, absolutely, and I would very much agree. It is a sector where we are seeing some very significant innovation and change. We're seeing the effects of those changes starting to come through in terms of improvements to treatments, in terms of pharmaceutical drugs being even more effective over time. But I think perhaps the reason that it's not as obvious as, say, technological change in e-commerce or financial services, those types of areas, is on a day-to-day basis, we don't tend to go to the hospital all that much, happily, or have a need for a new treatment all that frequently. Again, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But so our own interactions with the healthcare sector don't tend to be as regular. And so as a result of that, I think for many people, we don't understand the changes that are progressing. But as you say, there really are important changes. So one of the areas that we think is most interesting in terms of the therapeutic benefit to people, as well as the investment opportunity, is what's happening with cancer treatments.
I see.
So in many nations...
Is it curable now?
Not yet. No.
Not yet.
Now we
Almost?
think that not yet.
Not yet.
It's a long horizon. But we think very important progress is being made towards much more effective treatments. And one of the underlying drivers of this is the work that's being done on immuno-oncology. Now, immuno-oncology sounds like quite a complex term, and it is a complex area, but really what it boils down to are treatments that can train our body's own immune systems to identify and then fight cancer cells. And those treatments, again, they are a work in progress, but those treatments are starting to show very significant improvements in their ability to help people fight cancer. And over time, we certainly think that this will become the primary way that cancer is treated.
How about other common symptoms, like Alzheimer's, diabetes?
Yes.
Are there any significant progress on that front?
There really is, but again, I think the challenge of this is that they are longer term. The healthcare sector, new drug discovery, new treatment development, it plays out over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So absolutely progress is being made. So whether those are central nervous system ailments, so Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease or even depression, there are significant advancements being made in all of those areas. Again, fabulous in terms of the societal benefit that over time will come from that, but also very interesting from an investment perspective. If you are able to identify the companies that are driving the most innovative and most successful treatments, then those companies over time can be very powerful investments.
Can you explain to us a lifespan of a drug from the onset of the R&D, the experiment in the lab, and then before the drug is marketable, and also needs to go through very tough process, from the regulators before doctors are allowed to prescribe that particular drug, to the patients.
That's very true.
What's the curve there?
Yeah, well, it's a long horizon in many cases. So also I think interestingly to touch on is the innovation that's happening and the acceleration that's resulting in the pace of new drug discovery. So one of the most important changes that's driving that enhancement of new drug discovery is all of the work that's been done over the last few decades in understanding genetic causes of disease, in decoding the human genome, and then with medical research scientists and doctors looking at that genetic information to identify the causes of disease, and through better understanding those causes of disease, being better able to develop treatments to target those diseases more effectively. And so the process of new drug discovery has become much more systematic and somewhat quicker as the IT kind of data crunching back end has improved over time, but it is still a long process. So when you initially identify a compound or a treatment pathway to address a disease, you then have to do a number of different studies and trials to ensure the safety and efficacy of that treatment. That process typically takes at least 10 years, and it can take a longer period of time. When you have patent protection for that new treatment, often that patent protection might only last when the drug's available for sale for a relatively short number of years, because the R&D process in testing and developing that treatment, which the patent can cover, that is a lengthy period, and it's very important that it is lengthy. So ultimately for the safety of people who might take that drug or that treatment, we want to make sure that the treatment is positive and that the side effects or potentially negative consequences are minimized. So that safety aspect is very, very important.
So looking ahead 5 years or more than that, what's going to be the game changer in the healthcare sector? What particular technology disruptions or innovations that we should pay attention to?
Yes, so I think we're starting to see change in a few different sort of subsets or through different underlying areas within healthcare. So obviously new pharmaceutical development, so pharma and biotech is one area where we're seeing a great deal of acceleration in the development of new treatments, and we think that that's going to continue. But that's only one subset of the healthcare universe. And so in medical devices and diagnostic tools, we're starting to see innovation really flourish in those areas as well. So whether that is the increasing use of robotic surgery, and just on that, with robotic surgery, we're talking about a human physician supervising the robot, not the robot operating on its own, but so robot-assisted surgery. In certain surgery types today, those surgeries with robots are already
high precision.
Exactly. So in these more technically challenging areas, they are already very, very useful tools. But over time, we think that that's going to be much more widely used. Diagnostics is another area where there's significant innovation. And so, for example, expert systems and AI are learning to help physicians diagnose diseases much more accurately and much more rapidly. And so already today, for certain types of cancer screening, AI-based screening is more accurate and faster than a trained doctor. And that again, we think is going to become a wider opportunity set where there's more and more, effectively automation, but at least AI assistance helping doctors diagnose and then start to treat these diseases.
Final question, what's your outlook for the healthcare sector in 2019?
We certainly continue to have a constructive outlook. As we were touching on earlier, I think some of the challenges that the sector has faced in prior periods are now behind us, that political aspect, the focus on healthcare, and I think it's very, very likely that that will continue to be behind us. And so really what we're looking at in terms of being the most important driver of the sector are the performances of the companies themselves. So their revenue streams, their profitability, their ability to successfully over time bring new treatments to market. And when we look at this company by company, we see very, very significant opportunities in the sector.
Thank you very much, Philip, for a very fruitful discussion today.
Thank you very much. A pleasure talking to you. Thank you.